Hi, everybody. Welcome to a friendly Friday. Today I have with me Odyssey. How are you doing today, Odyssey?
I am doing good. I'm doing great.
That's
Super,
awesome.
super awesome.
Good. Yeah, I like to hear that. Well, you're looking very nice today. Thank you for taking the time to come out and
Thank
talk
you.
with us.
I came out all the way to my bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Oh, and
uh-huh.
I also go by Audrey and
Audrey.
uh and a nickname of Audie as well. That's what most people call me, Audie. Um, anyways, yeah, continue.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. I don't know if I told you, but the Golbat I named after you went and evolved into a Crobat.
Cool. I don't
Yeah,
really know much about Pokemon, but I'm assuming
that's
that's
okay.
a Crobat's like really badass and
Yeah.
awesome.
No, I love Crobat.
To match my vibe.
Yeah, very badass, very awesome. Well, good. It's nice to have you on. We talked kind of a
Thank
little
you.
bit about the topics we like to talk about here. So if you don't mind, let's start off a little bit with your trans experience and kind of what that's been like and what that means to you.
It's been really broad. It's kind of been like a constantly evolving thing, to be honest. I almost feel like I've transitioned multiple times sometimes because my understanding of my own gender has kind of done like a 180 time and time again. Uh, it's like having multiple plot twists layered on top of one another. Uh, I guess I can start out by saying from a very young age, I knew that like being a guy didn't really work for me. I didn't really care for it. And I would have experiences like looking in a mirror and seeing and like picturing myself not picturing myself as a girl, but like just seeing my own face as it existed, but like perceiving it as feminine instead of perceiving it as masculine, and it would just feel better to me, And I would ask things to my parents, like, are you sure I wasn't born a girl or something like that? I didn't even know what the fuck I was saying, but just you get what I'm saying. Anyways,
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
uh, so flash forward, years and years of repression of this. And I think I was around like, I think I was 21 or like about to turn 21. And I, oh, my little sister, she came out to me as transgender.
Hmm.
And uh, we live in a very unaccepting household, or by we, I mean like we did. I'm now moved out of that. She's still stuck there, unfortunately.
Mm.
Anyways, I was looking into like trans stuff, trying to understand it to get a better idea of how to help her through what she was going through, uh, especially because like our parents weren't going to be that for her. And in fact, they were like very actively uh, bad for her mental health at the time. So, and through the process of coming to understand uh, what being transgender meant more, I actually saw a lot of myself in that, and a lot of my own experiences were reaffirmed. And then I came out to her as being some form of trans,
Hmm.
not really knowing exactly what it was at the time. I just sort of had like a vague feeling of like, I want to be more feminine because I know this whole masculinity thing it ain't cutting it. It's not working out for me.
Right.
And that's kind of all I really understood at the time. And since then, it's kind of just been a continuously evolving process of coming to understand it more and more, whilst also deconstructing a lot of things. I don't know. uh, let's see where to go from there. There was a while where I kind of more or less identified as like a trans girl of sorts, but like labeled myself as not quite a girl, I guess, like non-binary. I went by demi girl for a while.
Hmm.
Uh, and I can try and go into detail. about all of the different ways that I try to explain my own experience
Sure.
uh, through conventional terminology. But the more I tried to, the more I tried to like intellectualize like what I was going through and explain it very particularly, the more I had trouble using the conventional terminology that I was given. Uh, at least in terms of like uh, a normative gender spectrum from like masculinity to femininity. Uh, that just didn't make sense to me. I didn't feel like an all-encompassing model of gender really made sense in my mind. As in, like, I felt gender fluid,
Mm-hmm.
but when I became more or less feminine, I didn't feel like I was becoming more masculine if I was less feminine, right? I didn't feel like I was becoming more androgynous. It was just simply less feminine. It was more like a spectrum between femininity and being a gender of sorts, right? So it was more like feminine and negative feminine, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But even that didn't fully capture how I was feeling. It was more so just like, oh, an attempt to kind of convey everything. I've also been feeling lots of other things that I don't even know if they're entirely related to gender. Uh, like, for instance, I get a lot of euphoria from the idea of being inhuman, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes any sense.
It does. Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I don't know if that, again, I don't know if that's gender or something else, but like it feels kind of wrapped up in that. And and I almost feel like it's like a I don't know, really true to me, if that makes sense. Whereas like
Mm-hmm.
femininity feels more like something I'm stuck with. Uh, as I don't know like why I identify with femininity, if there's some sort of like, I don't know if there's like a something biological that like that I'm hardwired with, if it's like purely a sociological byproduct of my environment growing up or what
Mm-hmm.
it is, but I it's something that I'm stuck with, and uh if that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm really just rambling uh,
No, I don't.
incoherently, I think.
I don't think it's so incoherent. I think, everyone's experience with gender is a little bit different, and valid, of
Mm-hmm.
course, and I just like hearing everyone's take. I kind of
Thank you.
empathize rather with
Mm-hmm.
like the desire to feel kind of connected to something that's inhuman. I've known a lot of people in my life that, I wouldn't say that they necessarily saw it this way, but you could probably say, looking at it based on, workable definitions that we have today, that they identified as quote unquote alien gender, right? What you would say would be alien gender, in that you feel like you're kind of like
Sick.
extraterrestrial, or like you feel outside of the human experience to a degree.
That sounds
And
cool. Uh,
yeah,
I guess I kind of relate to that. Yeah. I guess I could talk about like my xenogender now.
yeah.
Um, where that kind of originated was I kind of, okay, I've always had a fascination with like fungi. I think
Mm-hmm.
that they're like just really cool, just even just aesthetically, but
Mm-hmm.
also just in terms of like what they are and how they function. I think that's like super fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's a whole other thing. But there are certain qualities of fungi that I like always really identified with in like an abstract sense that it's difficult to like uh, explain in like a hard objective way. Think of
Mm-hmm.
it like say like you like trying to describe masculinity, right? You can't do it in like a way that is in a like an objective observation of reality. You can only do it in like figurative expressive language,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's this abstract concept. uh there are other things like that for me in the same vein that I can't really pin down outside of just describing it as like I feel a sense of otherworldliness or inhumanness,
Mm-hmm.
or I feel as though I don't know, I find beauty in the horror of my existence, things like that. Those things like really align with how I feel. And for me, that feels wrapped up in like gender in a way,
Mm-hmm.
uh, with like femininity and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of, I guess, see a lot of that in like fungi, right? And I also
Mm-hmm.
related to how like the very wide, diverse range of the ways that they appear and look. You know, they're not all mushrooms. Like fungi can look wildly different from that. And I that kind of leaned into the whole like gender fluidity
Mm-hmm.
side of my gender, right? And so I started this xenogender thing as like not fully certain of what I was doing, but I just knew like I think that this is a fun way of expressing how I feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a thing I kind of do sometimes for fun, call myself a fungus or whatever. And that was about the extent of it. But then, like, the more that I leaned into that, I don't know, I started feeling really good about it. And where it felt as though I was no longer having to articulate how I was feeling using terminology that had pre-existing connotations, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. Where instead, what I was doing was I was creating a blank slate, and I could just explain my experience in like the truest way I possibly could, separate from the masculine feminine paradigm that has been constructed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I see this very similarly to how people identify as like a woman or a man or a demigirl, like non-binary, androgynous, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Right? These are socially constructed categories, not inherent things, right? They're not tangible. What they are is categories that we've constructed as in an attempt to um, describe a set of attributes that we've observed in people, right? Um, but like just having two genders dis- to like describe such a wide variety of what humans are capable of aligning with
Mm-hmm.
is kind of reductive, and can also be really harmful because over time expectations of what those genders must be uh, arise, and that can hurt people when they're like put into a box, right? Not even like even cis people are hurt
Mm-hmm.
constantly by gender expectations, right? And and so what this is in the same way that like saying like if I was to say I'm a woman, I'm not saying I'm this literal thing, right? What I'm saying is like it's shorthand for saying here's the various things that I kind of align with for whatever reason, whether it be like something hardwired into my brain or
Mm-hmm.
sociological, environmental uh, thingies, whatever. Uh, Here, I instead, what I'm doing is very much the same thing, but I'm just constructing this new gender to that uh, describes my own like very specific things rather than something that already has preconceived notions attached to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I described it in probably the most convoluted way I possibly could. I probably would have explained it a lot better on like Twitter or something if I was trying to like translate it to text.
Right.
But I just kind of ramble when I'm
No.
just talking
Yeah,
like this.
absolutely. No, I'd prefer you talk because it's like this is the opportunity I love to give to people is for them to just, get their experience out and see
Hmm.
things from their perspective. And so, yeah, I'd much rather these episodes be 90% of my guest talking and 10% of me talking. So, please do not feel bad about rambling at all. That's yeah, literally the
Okay,
whole point. So, you're
cool.
good. But I did want to
Well, I guess
mention.
it's not.
Oh, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say how you said something about cis people being harmed by expectations of gender. And it reminded me
Hmm.
of a topic that I was recently looking at here for a news episode that I failed to put out today. But it was about the Olympics. The standards for the Olympics have been set, so now they're not going to require people to meet certain hormone levels like they did before to participate
Well,
in
that's
certain
good.
sports. Yeah, well, it was good because, and this is how it connected here, is because, cis women who would participate in the Olympics sometimes wouldn't meet those hormone requirements and then were required by the Olympic Committee to then go on hormones to meet their requirement to participate in women's sports. Yeah, yeah, absurd. So,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah.
All
But
right. I mean, it's kind of based though. It's roundabout force femming.
right? Trans the cis women into being trans
Hmm.
women. Huh? Hmm?
Yes, trans AFABs, uh, or trans AFAB women or whatever. Never mind.
Trans
I'm
femme
sorry. This joke
AFAB
doesn't
women.
land.
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard.
Uh,
Chloe could probably make it land. Chloe's got a tweet for everything.
yeah, but it would probably also involve like talking about girl dick and cum.
Oh, true.
So,
True. Well, I mean, not like that's a problem, but anyway. Um, you were saying before I so rudely interrupted you.
I don't fully remember.
That's okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, maybe I don't know if this is exactly what I was going to say,
Hmm.
but to some degree, I don't see people as like say cis people, right? I don't see cis people as like, how do I describe this in a way that doesn't sound like it's like invalidating binary people, because that's not at all what I'm trying to do. What I'm
Right.
trying to say is like, I don't think that people are inherently men and women, if that makes sense. I think that all gender identities are a choice. I don't think that it's voluntary, uh, whether or not you whether or not you align with certain like attributes, right? And I think that most people, more or less, are very comfortable with the sort of the confines of what man and woman are, and I think like their attributes fall in that more or less.
Right.
Uh, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like man is like you're just inherently born a man. It's just sort of like, okay, this is the most common social role that very closely aligns with what you are, and so and you're just comfortable with identifying as that. Same with like trans people, right?
Hmm.
For a long time, like I thought about like identifying as a woman. I thought about if I was like, would I be comfortable with that? And like that's something I seriously considered for a long time. And if I, let's say I did, I would be no less valid if I was currently identifying as a trans woman.
Hmm.
That wouldn't, it wouldn't be disingenuous of me, I don't think, right?
Hmm.
It's just that's not what I chose to do because I felt that I could have. Uh, I felt I would have felt better identifying as something else, but like it's I don't know exactly what you're saying, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like uh, I would like if people stopped viewing men and women as like inherent things that you just are, and more as like socially constructed categories because these are social constructs, right? I feel like a lot of people say gender is a social construct, but then we don't actually like follow through like to its logical conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
and we just stop at like, well, women can have a dick, I guess, you know.
Right.
uh, like no, these are socially constructed categories,
Mm-hmm.
and if you want to identify as a woman, that's fucking awesome if you feel comfortable with that. But at the end of the day, it's just a category, and therefore we should not be like placing such harsh expectations on people because they identify as like a woman or if they identify as a man, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, right? Because these are not inherent things. These
Right.
are just categories, uh, and those categories can mean whatever we want,
Right.
right? Societally,
Mm-hmm.
did I say that correctly?
No, yeah.
Societally,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I think that that could in turn end up uh, helping even cis people or just binary trans people who feel as though they don't like fit within like the expectations of what society wants of them and feel as though that they should, right? And try to change themselves more and more in order to do that. I think it would make it a lot easier on everyone if we embraced the fact that these are just social constructs.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that made sense. I don't know.
Yeah. No, the way I understand it is kind of like man and woman are not things that are inherent to the sex you were born or the gender you were assigned when you were born. They're actually
Mm,
roles that you play within society. Even cis
yeah.
men have their gender called into question constantly by
Yeah.
capitalism, like by all of these companies that say, "Well, are you man enough to do this?" And then you've got dude wipes, and you've got fucking I don't know, like truck nuts and shit like that. You know what I'm talking about? Like this is all like
Oh
calling into
yeah.
question the role of you play as a man
Hmm.
in society, right?
Yeah.
They're taking advantage of that and your insecurity with that, and I
It's not
think.
even just that, but it's also your own like personal
Mhm.
perception of what these things are, right? Because like you may feel as though you align with being a man, but like
Right.
what that means to you could be very different than the
Hmm.
culture that you're living in.
Right. Well, and another thing is that I think what you were kind of alluding to is that the gender binary as it exists today is limiting, even for trans people who kind of see themselves outside of the binary because of the social understanding of it as it is. The society puts a enormous amount of pressure on trans people to fit into one of two boxes. And even if you have an understanding of gender outside of that binary, it's often hard for you to find that acceptance within yourself to identify outside of that binary. I think if we as a society had a deeper understanding of gender, if we all understood it the way that people like you and I do, I think that maybe we would see less pressure that way. And I think maybe you're right. I think we would see people start to identify like outside of that spectrum. You know.
Oh yeah, I've kind of been talking about this more and more recently, but
Mm-hmm.
like the more that I've explored like the underground queer spaces within like online or the IRL area that I live in,
Mm-hmm.
I live in a very conservative place, by the way. So
Right.
like queer people like stick together
Yeah. Yeah.
like a commune. I'm literally living in a house full of 6 other queer people right now.
Oh goodness. Nice.
And but yeah, even like people who identify as like cis still tend to be very questioning of how cis they are, if that makes sense, right? Like I
Hmm.
feel like if
Yeah.
there was more of a, first of all, like a like standardized acceptance of trans people,
Hmm.
right? That's like a baseline, and then on top of that, a better, like, wider understanding of gender outside
Hmm.
of just like, oh, well, it's not hurting anyone else, and it makes them happy. So yeah, if they want to be a woman, I'll call them a woman, which I think is valid. But like, I also would like if people had that deeper understanding of why that is, right?
Hmm.
Um, if that was the case, I think that more and more people would probably identify as some form of non-binary,
Hmm.
right? More and more people are. Uh, I, I know so many people who like literally like still even just present mostly like their assigned gender at birth, but they identify as non-binary, you
Yeah.
know, because they don't like feel like tied to that assigned gender at birth, you know.
Right.
They feel as though they're like somewhere in like gender space beyond that.
Hmm.
Not everyone has to be like a trans femme demon mushroom, you know what I mean? Or like, you know, like anything that isn't just strictly a cis man or strictly a cis woman is some form of like, you know, uh, gender queer or trans. I
Right.
think more and more people would be trans if
Hmm.
we did have that wider understanding. And that could domino into far more radical things happening down the line. You know, I don't know what your beliefs are in like gender abolition and things
Hmm.
like that. I don't even know exactly where I stand on a lot of that stuff, but
Hmm.
I think that a lot of um, what people propose could be possible
Hmm.
in terms of uh, the landscape, like the cultural landscape of our understanding of gender.
Hmm.
Uh, is a lot more radical than a lot of people like can even imagine right now.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I've thought a lot about it, about xenogenders and stuff like that, and I would say that if I had to, put it into words, I would say that my gender would like identify with something like that of a tree, connected to nature, sturdy, and many branches. I think something like that aesthetic,
Mhm.
I would really identify with. But I think
That's
if
cool.
we take a step back and we look at gender as a set of roles that we play within society, I think it's foolish for us to stop at two. Why?
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
why there's plenty of room. Like, do you know how many there's billions of people. There's so many more
Yeah.
things we can be doing. Why do we have to have just two roles? I don't get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Well,
my opinion
well,
of the whole thing.
a lot of people would agree with that, but they don't. A lot of times, like people, even in like progressive spaces, like won't like fully understand xenogenders. Like they'll understand non-binary, for instance,
Right.
right? But they don't understand people making non-binary people making new genders for themselves to describe their own experience. Instead, they want them to describe their experience within the confines of the binary,
Right.
if that makes sense, right? Where I did talk about this not too long ago, where I feel as though, well, I don't think that like say the normative idea of a like the gender spectrum is entirely useless. I don't think that it's helpful seeing that as like the all-encompassing model of
Hmm.
gender.
Right.
I think ultimately, if it's viewed that way, it's just kind of going full circle and reinforcing the binary, rather than non-binary people being able to like construct their own identities to describe their particular experience. They have to do it in terms of its relation to masculinity and femininity, man and woman. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I
And for
totally
some
agree.
people that works,
Hmm.
you know.
No, I mean, like some people absolutely want to fit within that binary and want to play that
Yeah.
role, and that's valid. That's absolutely valid. But some people don't. I certainly
Uh-huh.
didn't identify with the role of a man, which is why I'm here as I am today. But I also don't
Yeah.
necessarily like identify with the role of a woman that society puts on. I mean, even cis women have like ridiculously high standards for each other. Like, yeah, it is. It's a
It can get
completely
pretty
different.
dang toxic, yeah. Sorry to cut you off. I'm
No, you're
sorry.
fine. You're fine. But I agree with you. Yeah, it can be toxic, but in a different way, And it's like,
Uh-huh.
toxic masculinity is one thing where you're encouraged to like not show your emotions and, act tough and all that. But, toxic femininity, like internalized misogyny, that can be really bad too.
Mm-hmm.
You can end up undercutting, some of your fellow sisters. Just by your own like I don't know
Mm-hmm.
biases, and that's
And a
sad.
lot of times the like one reinforces the other, you
Hmm.
know.
That's
There's a
right.
lot of aspects of like toxic masculinity
Hmm.
that then coerces women into having to act a particular way,
Hmm.
which then reinforces toxic femininity, which then can lead to creating like just going full circle and then reinforcing the expectations that of men
Hmm.
as being like, the patriarchs of society,
Hmm.
and like having that as the expectation.
Well, yeah, I
It's
mean,
like,
like if you have a group of women and the group of women all have a standard for each other and like the type of men that they're with, and then they go out and they all have that expectation for those men. Those men are then meant to meet that expectation. So if that happens at a large enough scale, yes, it is circular, like you
uh,
said. One can reinforce the other, and it can be toxic. I mean, for lack of a better way to say it. So yeah, I think a
yeah,
deeper understanding of gender as like a structure of roles that we can play in society, rather than a binary, even like a binary spectrum that you could fit on. I think would be
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Well, sweet. Uh, I don't really know how else to like in greater depth explain my gender experience. To be honest, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, that's cool.
Uh,
I like it. I mean, if you're
so,
comfortable with it, we can go ahead and just leave it at that, and we can move on to something maybe a little bit different.
okay, whoa, what was the second thing again?
Do you
I
have
don't
any
remember.
projects or hobbies or interests that you're working on that you want to talk about? Anything that's
Oh
occupying your time?
yeah. Uh, well, I could tell you about things that I have on hold and on the back burner. As far as things I'm actively working on as a healthy, functioning human being, that list is zero.
Yeah.
um, if I had to talk about one thing in particular, it would probably be my story. It's called The Bleeding Planet.
Hmm.
Um, it's it's gone through a lot of different like conceptual phases of like I want it to be like an animated series or like a graphic novels or something like that. But it seems that like the most practical way that I'm going to be able to tell this story is as like a serialized online book of
Hmm.
sorts. Uh, a- Say like akin to a like Wattpad, right?
Hmm.
Though I wouldn't put it on Wattpad because Wattpad is definitely not the platform for something like this. Uh, this is like high fantasy slash sci-fi ish stuff. Uh, and it's something that I've been working on and off for uh, a good while now, probably like 5 years.
Hmm.
Like I was in high school, uh, very different person when this started, and it was a very different story at that
Yeah.
time. Uh, but like a lot of the core themes and concepts have stayed pretty constant. Um, do you want me to describe
Sure.
like a basic premise to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the plot all about?
Um, what's the what about?
The plot?
Oh, the plot all about. Okay, sorry. I have like an auditory processing disorder.
Oh,
So when
yeah.
you said, what's the plot all about? That all
Ah,
just sounded like one word to me, and I didn't know what it was. Does that make
gotcha.
sense?
Yeah, no
Like
problem.
I was the kid who thought LMNOP was like one letter for a
Right.
while.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
if it makes
So
things better, I'll make an effort to speak more clearly.
thank you. I
Mm.
really do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, so what is I doing? Oh yeah, plot. Maybe
Hmm.
not the plot just yet. I will try and convey to you as best I can, like the
Okay.
core concept of it. Um, imagine you imagine that your consciousness um, as this abstract concept, right,
Hmm.
was actually it existed in like a physical material form, and it was actually this liquid that existed inside of you as your bloodstream.
Hmm.
That makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So and now let's say that this substance, it comes from the planet that you exist on, and that makes up the oceans, the lakes, the rivers, the ponds, whatever, right? It there is no water in this fictional universe, right? Like it's just this stuff. And when people are born, they're born in like pods, and those pods are placed in the substance, and it opens up, and then it enters like the child and like fills its
Mm.
circulatory system until it has this stuff. And what it allows the organisms to do is retain memories, um, and the past emotions connected to them, uh, which are forms of energy that allow their bodies to function. It's like a complicated system, but
Hmm.
uh, anyways, what they can also do is this practice called bleeding, where essentially through introspection and gaining a greater connection to this substance within yourself, you're able to manipulate it using like the energies within it, like the memories and emotions, and sort of uh, speak to it to move in particular ways that you wish, and have it exit your body and sort of shape it into different things,
Hmm.
and change its molecular structure into being more solid, or for instance, right? And say you could like do that and you got really good at it, you could like sprout like a sword from
Hmm.
your hand and use that as like a weapon. That's sort of like the central concept of like the core system. There's a lot more to it, but
Hmm.
that's all I can really say right now without like big spoilery things.
Oh, sure. Well, that's
Uh,
very interesting. I like that concept. You've got me hooked already.
okay, yeah. Okay. Anyways,
No, it's true. Like I'm really big into something like that because what you were describing kind of reminds me a lot of I don't know if you've ever played Final Fantasy VII, but the life stream. It's a concept in that game where when you die, your soul, as it exists, returns to the life stream, which circulates throughout the planet and gives life to all the plants and all the birds and everything. And it's
sick.
used to you basically there was this giant company that learned how to harvest the energy from the life stream and create magic with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, there are more similarities to this. When you die, what the substance is called akimbo. The akimbo leaves your system and it returns to like the greatest like source of
Right.
akimbo closest to you, almost like a magnetic attraction, right?
Hmm.
And then your fragments of like memories and emotions, they sort of like disperse within that, and then it's like a source of energy. And technology actually predominantly runs on this because it's such an easy, plentiful, accessible form of energy,
Right.
and it's actually actively destroying the akimbo um, because, uh, well, society is running on that technology, and it's very
Yep.
profitable. uh,
Yeah.
and and hmm, what else was I going to say? I'm forgetting what I was going to say. Oh yeah, I completely skipped over the fact that all of this stuff is like it comes from the planet itself. It
Hmm.
doesn't just exist on it. It's like it's seeped out of the cracks of the planet at some point
Yeah.
in time, and there's sort of a mystery surrounding that of like
Ooh.
what the planet is and what this stuff is,
Hmm.
uh, and how these creatures that exist on the planet, because it's not just like humans and stuff, there's all kinds of different species that use this in different ways, how they evolved to require such a thing in order to like function, you know? Oh, I can't hear you. What?
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. No,
You're good.
I'm very interested in the plot. Yeah, for the reasons I described, it has a lot of similarities to another story that I'm very fond of, and I'd like to see
Mhm.
that explored, that kind of similar concept explored, maybe with a different story or with a different scenario, because it is, I don't know, it really resonates with me. I like that.
It's it's going. I can say it's going to be very long.
Yeah.
It's the plan is multiple arcs, and each arc is. If you've ever read Berserk,
Hmm.
um, yeah, Berserk has incredibly long arcs, and each one is almost like its own like epic fable in a
Right.
sense, right? It's like its own major tale,
Hmm.
which then like leads into the next one. It has like it's not like a bunch of like separate stories. Like it has like consistent characters with
Right.
consistent arcs recurring through them. But like each one like really stands on its own. It's very similar to that,
Hmm.
but maybe even more so in terms of like how distinct each one is from the other.
Hmm.
Like it goes from like little D&D adventure story where you have like a party of characters to then like a a much wider ensemble cast of characters, almost like a sitcom
Hmm.
slice of life thing, whilst in the background the socio economic political shit is happening, which
Right.
then leads to like all kinds of turmoil and like inner like conflict and stuff happening in this major city, to then like Lord of the Rings epic fantasy shit, to then like a war story, to then like end of the world apocalyptic Lovecraftian horror shit. I don't know. It evolves a lot over the course of I probably shouldn't say more. It might be a bit spoilery, but like
Oh, well, that's exciting. No, I think I'm not too familiar with Berserk, but if I understand you correctly, I think Dragon Ball Z had a similar storytelling mechanic with the different sagas that they did, where they would talk.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
I'm not. I've never been a Dragon Ball Z person, so I wouldn't know. That's
Oh,
all I was
okay.
gonna say.
Gotcha. No, it's very similar to what you described with Berserk, where it's kind of like there's an overarching story, but the it's kind of like split into different sagas where there's like one overarching
Yeah.
villain that they have to, or one overarching problem they have to overcome, and then it leads on to the next. And it's usually these are separated by a number of years, right? So it's like the characters
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
time you
yeah.
get to the next one look significantly different than they did when you watched the last one. So yeah.
Yes, there's this. It happens over the course of a very long time, and the characters age significantly throughout this,
Mm-hmm.
and change significantly in very different ways. Which I'm as two fellow trans people, I'm sure you can like imagine
Yeah.
what that might entail. Uh, Other influences, I guess maybe I can like hint, I guess more maybe to give more of an idea of what the actual story is like.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my biggest like influences are, well, I already said Berserk,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Evangelion is a big
Mm-hmm.
one, I guess. In some ways, Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and then loosely like things like Attack on Titan and stuff like
Sure.
that. I don't know. I could keep going on and on. The influences keep getting like less and less
Mm-hmm.
important, but to a degree, yeah, those are like kind of the main influences over this in terms of like stylistically,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the vibe that I'm going for. The magic system with the akimbo, a lot of times I imagine it as like, imagine the bending from Avatar: The Last Airbender is like this physical, practical thing mixed with like the LCL of like Evangelion. I don't even know if you've seen
Oh,
these
yeah.
shows or
Uh-huh.
not.
I've seen Eva.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, where it's like an internal like exploration of like the psychosis of like deranged characters.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's all wrapped up into like one magic system. And there's also cosmic elements to this that it's connected to. So that's where like Star Wars comes in with more like ideas of like the Force and stuff like that.
Right.
Uh, Anyways,
Yeah. No, that's very
yeah,
interesting. Where can
I could
we?
talk more about like the characters and stuff, but like I don't
Yeah.
know. I've already talked about this for a long time.
Well, where can we read the story? For anybody watching that might be
I
interested.
don't know. I've been recommended by like other online writers who
Mm-hmm.
write in like serialized format. Uh, Probably like Royal Road, I think the site is called. That's one I'd probably consider. It might be on like multiple, like two or three platforms. I don't know. It'll be
Mm-hmm.
free, whatever it is.
Sure.
Uh, but yeah, it would be cool to get like some kind of following at some point. Maybe start like a Patreon,
Oh yeah.
and be able to like do it more consistently.
Right.
It would also make me feel a bit more motivated to do it because like my awesome parents really tied my self-worth and the importance of the things that I'm doing to how much money I'm making off of them. So
Yeah. Well, as parents do, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
oof, classic parent move. Um, um,
So anyway, sorry, that was just that was meant to be a lighthearted joke.
no,
Uh,
yeah.
I flubbed that.
Oh, it's okay. No, no, no. It's probably my fault for misinterpreting. But no, I think it's really great
No,
that
okay,
the story's coming along well, and I'm personally really excited to read it. Um,
cool. Yeah, it's been on hold for, or at least like me working on it, quite a while. I It got to the point where I would barely work on it, and then
mhm,
it was just becoming too emotionally draining to like constantly beat myself down for not like working on it as much as I
yeah.
wanted to. So I just said like I'm just going to like hard just put this on pause and just not worry about it for the time being. Because at the time I was still living with my parents. Things were incredibly difficult
Hmm.
with them, constantly fighting and suffering from like abusive language and emotional manipulation, and seeing the effects that that also had on my little sister.
Hmm.
And her depression getting worse and worse.
Sure.
Anyways, I'm going in way too much detail about that.
No, you're fine. You're
Yeah.
fine.
So hopefully now that I'm in a better environment, I will start working on it more
Mhm.
soon. But I also don't want to pressure myself too much
Right.
because I'm also like when I stop and think about it, I also even just struggle to take my own like medications reliably. You know, I
Mhm.
don't have a lot of like motivation to do much of anything right now.
Right.
So I don't know if it would be healthiest of me
Mhm.
to put that pressure on myself right now. But I feel like I'm a lot closer to being able to like really invest in that
Mhm.
uh, now than I ever have been since this whole like trans journey started.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that things are taking more stable turn for you. It's always a good feeling. Feels like a weight off your shoulders finally, you know, when it seems
Yeah,
like things are.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, did you have
Uh,
anything else you might want to talk about here tonight?
hmm, I don't know. Genuinely, like I'm a very indecisive person. Like
Hmm.
I would like to talk about something else
Hmm.
because I'm having fun, but
Okay.
I don't know what I was talking.
Sure. Well, so do you? I don't know how familiar you are with what's been going on lately, as far as like um, I don't know, like what's happening in Texas with the trans bills. Um,
Honestly, I used to be more up to date on that, but also like I kind of passively stopped paying so much attention to it because it was like I with my little sister,
mhm.
you know, still living here and everything, it was just becoming so hard to keep hearing
Right.
everything that's been going on, you know. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't. I'm so. Anyways, I'm not super up to date,
Oh,
but
sure.
uh, I know like bits and pieces of how like they kind of did a roundabout way of wait, that's not transgender, that's abortion. The whole
Oh, yeah. Well, it's kind of all lumped together, isn't it? Like,
tattletaling system. Yeah.
yeah.
God,
Oh, it's okay. No,
it's so
if
fucked
it.
up. It's so fucked up. And the only people who could like potentially uh, get the current governor out of there is Beto, which he's not going to win. I'm sorry. And fucking uh, what's his name? He's an actor of some kind. I think he's
Oh,
probably like some kind of centrist. Uh,
I think I know who you're talking about. Wasn't he like a previously professional wrestler?
I literally have no idea, but
Is it Jesse Ventura?
no, it's not. No, 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 no.
Okay.
He. Oh, why am I forgetting the name? I think it has like his last name has like an starts with an M or something. Like,
Oh, was it?
oh, this is killing me.
Is it Matthew
This is killing
McConaughey?
me. Matthew McConaughey, yes.
I don't know why I thought of that, but yeah. No, yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
you're right.
Matthew McConaughey. He's talked a lot about running. I don't know if he's. I literally don't know if he's like confirmed that he's going to run or not. But he has like talked a lot about it, so he's like likely probably going to.
Uh-huh.
And I can't believe I'm living in a reality where Matthew McConaughey is probably our best shot to get this dude out of office. And then I don't even know like how good would Matthew McConaughey be? Like maybe better. I don't know. I don't know how much better he'd be on like certain social issues and stuff. I haven't really seen him talk specifics about like policies or anything like that.
I
So
haven't seen him say anything, actually. I saw he posted an announcement or something that he was like eyeing it like a number of months ago, and since then it's just been nothing. I don't know.
oh god, this
So,
state is such a shit show. I mean, there's a lot of things I love about living here,
yeah.
but god, it is it I don't know. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't have the words. It's just like this. It's like this feeling of frustration that you just cannot do anything about as like
Yeah.
an individual, you know?
Right.
And I want to start doing more and getting more involved in things, but I also know that like my mental health is just really not good right now, and I don't know if that would
Right.
help
Well,
with my mental health, like, or if it would, the responsibilities of that would just hurt me more. You
yeah.
know, I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think there needs to be a way for trans people to participate in this level of activism that doesn't require them to be at odds with, their current mental health. Because I know that that's a struggle for a lot of trans people that they can't deal with, what all is going on,
Yeah,
plus all of the bigotry they face in their own lives, plus all of the legal barriers that you have to fight, plus all of the emotions that you get from doing hormones, plus blah, 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 all this stuff. So, like, yeah, it can be hard. Yeah, I know. So if there
yeah,
were like an
it's
easier
fucking
way
difficult.
for for most trans people to participate in this by either like signing a petition or having some kind of like organization that you can contact, just like a 5 minute thing. You can fill out a form, bam, bam, be done. There, you've shown your support. We're getting it gone. Like something like that,
It
I
doesn't
think.
even have to be. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, I think that would be ideal as far as getting more people involved without asking for too much investment.
Hmm. I also think that even just not even like necessarily having to like participate in like electoralism, which I don't think is unimportant.
Hmm.
Uh, but at the same time, I also think that as you as you work on that, you also can do a lot of good outside of that in like just being there for one another and create
Yeah,
and like organizing your community to create support networks for one another.
right.
You could do something specifically for trans people, especially in like very like deeply red counties, which Texas is covered in. Uh, like there's plenty of like uh, just queer people
Hmm.
in general that are like very young, who got kicked out very young, and don't really have much of a means to like support themselves, right?
Right.
And having like a network that you could reliably go to, that's that is definitely something that would be really good. But yeah, then also on the electoral side of things, getting you know, being able to influence policy being passed. That is, I wish that I currently had the initiative to be more involved in stuff like that,
Yeah.
like, but I don't know. With my own personal mental health, the thought of that is just so exhausting, you
Yeah.
know? Like I right now I'm over here thinking about like with my roommates, we want to start a garden,
Hmm.
so we can become like more like self-sufficient
Hmm.
financially when it comes to food. So we can have like more expenses, which then can domino into us being able to do other things, and
Right.
maybe also being able to share that with other people, because we don't like the area we live in is not like super rich or anything. It's like
Hmm.
it's very like just straight middle class to like lower middle class in where we are, and there's definitely, I'm sure, a lot of people here that could also use a lot of help that we could probably coordinate with, uh could maybe start some kind of like extremely decentralized like support network of some kind, you know.
Right.
But even that, the barriers to start something like that as a trans person in a place like this is it's kind of high because it, I if I just start like knocking doors or like asking to like visit over like neighbors and stuff or like go to dinner parties and stuff, I don't know what the odds are that I'm going to be accepted, you know. I mean, there's a lot
Yeah.
more like minorities and people of like demographics that are more likely to be accepting of me, but at the same time I don't like fully know if they
Right.
are or not, so like I don't know how safe I would be doing that. It's complicated.
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely. Well, no, I think certainly you're right. And, just as there is room for everyone with gender, I think there's room for everyone with activism. There's a number of different
uh-huh.
ways of contributing to your community. Um, and not all of them have to be all encompassing. You certainly shouldn't be expected to be doing everything all at once, and being on Twitter can kind of make you feel like that you are,
And the
especially when it
more
comes to
people in
that. Hmm.
the more people involved, the less each individual person has to contribute
That's right.
personally.
Exactly. Yep. So yeah, building something where people can all kind of contribute a little bit, each according to whatever their own, and for each their needs or whatever. I don't have it memorized or whatever it is, but like that's the thing, right?
Oh,
Is
the phrase.
yeah,
I don't remember what it is. I've never really cared about like what
I
it was. It's just, I
yeah, I
don't know.
think it was
It's just
like
a slogan.
yeah,
Uh,
no, but it's like the meaning behind it is more what I'm trying to convey, and that's like
oh
you
yeah,
know
I agree with the meaning for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like what we should see from like tiny little communities. And I think that's the way that like a lot of places, especially in areas where there's a lot of like legal barriers, that's how these communities are going to thrive for the time being, is that
Well,
mutual aid.
I think that's really all for the most part, what we can do. I don't want to
Hmm.
sound super doomer. In fact, I'm actually quite a hopeful person in general.
Hmm.
I think that like a lot of progressive ideas can definitely be achieved within our lifetimes. Uh, Potentially incredibly radical things, but not not as certain about a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But I think that right now we have too much focus on the national government and Congress and the presidency and stuff. And I don't think that's unimportant, but also like with the way that the Senate exists, like,
Hmm.
come on, we're not going to get anything passed, right? Why are we
Right.
focusing on this so much? Why are we devoting so much attention to it when we could be devoting far more attention to local and state matters that we could have far more influence over, right? It's because that is a spectacle. This is like real. This is something that you as an individual have
Right.
more of like power over, so it's a bit scarier to like engage with that. And I understand that feeling for sure. But like
Yeah.
if we're going to like make change, I think it's going to have to start more on like that local level. I think that's really what we should be shifting focus to, and not just constantly endlessly complaining at Joe Manchin and
Yeah.
cinema, because they're not going to change, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, I think this would be a good point to wrap up, unless there was anything else you wanted to talk about.
Not really.
No?
I haven't eaten dinner yet, actually. I should probably eat something.
Yeah, I haven't eaten today myself, so I'm getting to be about that mood as well. Well,
Yeah.
I do want to thank you for coming out and talking to me. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this was nice. Not very coherent, but it was nice. Thank you for having me on. Hopefully, this is watchable.
Oh, of
Uh,
course. Yeah, no, these are the casual ones. These are meant to be kind of just like digestible podcast level episodes, so it's good. So, um,
okay, well, awesome. I really like what you're doing here with this show. It's a nice
uh,
little breath of positivity for people.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate that. Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
you're welcome on anytime. I would love to talk to you
Okay.
more, especially, as you get, closer to, if you ever decide to launch that project and get that story going. I'd love to have you on and
Oh,
talk
hell
about that
yeah.
again. So, yeah, keep me in
Okay.
touch,
Yeah.
okay?
We'll do. Okay. Thank you very much.
Of course.
You have a good one. This has been really nice.
Thanks, you too. And thank you all for coming out to Friendly Friday. Have a great weekend and take care. Bye bye.